So tonight we have Forrest Breyfogle, the CEO of Smarter Solutions, joining us for a presentation that he will be giving on metric reports that lead to the best behaviors. Forrest is an ASQ fellow and CEO of Smarter Solutions. He's authored over a dozen books, including Implementing Six Sigma Smarter Solutions Using Statistical Methods and Wisdom on the Green, Smarter Six Sigma Business Solutions. He has a new Management and Leadership 2.0, two books that has a, actually, let me go back. So his new Management and Leadership 2.0, two books provided novel written format explanation of an enhanced business management system that addresses the challenges of the day. Forrest was named Quality Professional of the Year for 2011 by Quality Magazine, and in 2012 was awarded Alumni of the Year by Missouri University of Science and Technology. He received the prestigious ASQ Crosby Medal for his book, Implementing Six Sigma, and the 2013 Lean and Six Sigma World Conference Leadership Award. The abstract to his presentation this evening is effective key performance indicator metric management in an organization is critical. However, there are issues with traditional metric reporting and its accompanying goal setting practices. Current organizational goal setting practices can lead to unhealthy, if not destructive behaviors, as illustrated in the article Wells Fargo Under Siege, Drop Sales Goals Tied to Bogus Account Scandal. Hopefully everyone on the call tonight was able to peruse those articles that were listed as homework for the presentation this evening. Traditional KPI metrics reporting is an elephant in the room problem where organizations can waste much time and resources that unnecessarily cost a lot of money and lead to much frustration. KPI management should lead to the best actions or non-actions in an organization, but more often than not, this does not occur. This presentation describes commonplace issues with KPI management practices and how to resolve those issues with an alternative 30,000 foot level KPI management reporting methodology. And I will let you read the rest of that. And without further ado, I would like to introduce Forrest Breyfogle. And I went online, Forrest, and I found this picture of you and several of your comrades. And I have included this because I love to fish myself. So I'm hoping you'll give us a little background on this before you start your presentation.
I'm sorry I'm not seeing that. I guess I went into presentation mode too quickly here. So. So.
Okay, no worries. We can. Are you able to share your screen now?
Yeah, I'm sharing it right now. Or at least from my end, I am. Can you see it?
I do not see it, Forrest.
I don't see it just yet.
Okay, well, let me try it again here. Thought maybe I didn't.
Oh, I see there's a
question.
Okay,
I should have, before I did that, I should have looked at that picture.
Oh, that's okay. Well, that's where we'll start next time. So you can give us the background on that after your presentation.
Okay. You're sharing your screen. Okay. So now you should be able to see my screen, right?
Yep, we can see your screen.
Okay, perfect. So, organizations, metric reports that lead to the best behaviors is very important. However, traditional performance metrics has issue with this point. They do not lead to the best behaviors, and that's what I'm going to be talking about here. So shown on this screen here, I've got 10 metrics that are from various organizations that I was given permission to share with others. Now, within one organization, we can actually have some function in the organization reporting a table of numbers. Another one function within the organization can be reporting red, yellow, green scorecards. Another function could be reporting bar charts. To me, this is a problem that needs to get addressed. So let's look at a table of numbers. I venture to say most of you have seen this form of reporting of one form or fashion in your organization. Now, what typically occurs when somebody presents this form of report in a meeting? what you'll get invariably is stories. So someone that's presenting will take one particular metric and compare that metric to what happened last month. Or they may compare to a previous year for a similar month. Now, what value does that really have? Well, probably not much if we're honest with ourselves. Now, interestingly, if somebody else presented the same table of numbers, then the thing is, we would probably get a different story. They perhaps could get a different metric that they're looking at or so on. So I'm suggesting this is a problem that needs to get addressed. This is another type of report out that might be occurring in an organization. Now, the question is, what do you do with this report out? To me, it's not very obvious what you do that will help the big picture and help your organization as a whole. On the left-hand side, I'm showing control chart, and the right-hand side, the process capability report. Now, with the control chart, what you'll see is a tracking of a process output over time, and then you see the upper and lower control limits. Now, if you have a point that's outside those limits, then you'll say that's a special cause. We need to get somebody to work on that right now. That's the only purpose of the control charts. I want a line only. Now, people will say, well, we can look at a high-level view using normal control charting, and I'm saying no. The only venture on this is you take many measurements within the day, perhaps, and then you identify when you got special cause that needs addressing. On the right-hand side, we've got a process capability report example. Now, what the output on that and the focus on this report is CP, CPK, PP, and PPK values. And I'd venture to say there's people from this line operator, the CEO, can have really trouble understanding those particular metrics, that form of reporting, and I'm saying that has issues. So we have problems with this form of reporting too that we need to address. Another form of reporting is red, yellow, green scorecards. Now, if a particular metric is green, then we say thumbs up. But if it's red, then we say we got a problem, and that means I go get somebody out there. Now, a number of years ago, I was given a presentation where I had what I'm calling 30,000 foot level charts, which I'll share with you a little bit later, and red, yellow, green scorecards. Now, this person said, well, Forrest, I was responsible for a metric, and it was green. It turned to red, but then it turned back to green. I didn't do anything. What should I do? And I said, well, obviously, with a smile on my face, take credit for that change. But you need to work on process improvement because invariably it's going to be red again. So there's some real issues with red, yellow, green scorecard reporting, and I think that we need to address that, and we're going to be talking about that. Now, goal setting in general, we can have real problems. Wells Fargo was an illustration of that a few years back when they established goals that were set to the number of new accounts that were achieved. And they gave bonuses if you had achieved certain objectives. Well, people were actually creating bogus accounts, and this created a big stir, and Wells Fargo had major financial problems with this and was penalized. So this was not a good thing. So we have to be careful on how we setting goals and how we undertake these goals. Now, a company that took this to the nth degree was Enron at the turn of the century, where they established goals and they said, don't give me the details, just meet these goals. And what the company was doing, or the people in the company, they were doing all sorts of bad things, and it led to even some jail time for some of the individuals, and some of the employees lost all their financial savings because they trusted leadership of woe at Enron. So we got to be careful on how we set goals, or it can lead to very bad behaviors. So what I believe, there's an elephant in the room that nobody's talking about. We got scorecards that are driving very bad, if not unhealthy behaviors. And I think that this needs to get addressed. And the way I'm going to do that is with what I call 30,000 foot level reporting. So this is not unlike looking out the window of an airplane in flight at 30,000 feet at the train below. You're getting a high level perspective of the train below. So that's what I'm suggesting my metrics will be like. Now I have something similar for financial metrics, and I refer to that as satellite level metrics. So key performance indicator and performance reporting formats that we typically have encourages Y management in the relationship of Y equal function of X, does not encourage improvement of the X's. That's a big deal. So what we want to do is to really focus on improving the X's. That's going to improve the Y, but the traditional reporting that we have does not encourage that at all. And also, traditional methodologies can lead to unhealthy, if not destructive behaviors, as I described in that Wells Fargo illustration. So there's a better way, and it's called integrated enterprise excellence. And I talked about that 30,000 foot level reporting methodology. And what I do is I have a free app that addresses these KPI performance and metrics issues. I have supporting articles in the 2020 books that I published, which is Management 2.0 and Leadership System 2.0. Now, these books are available in ebook format, paperback, and also audiobook formats. Now, the end of last year, I also wrote a book on Minitab and Lean Six Sigma. Now, this is a guide for improving performance metrics. Notice this is quite different than traditional Lean Six Sigma, which starts and highlights with a problem statement. And I think that's quite a big difference, because I want to look at, for a particular process, what metric do I want to improve? I'm not talking about just establish a problem statement. I've seen often we have Lean Six Sigma project outputs that make statements that are more like anecdotal. I want to show the benefits of the project. I'm truly from Missouri, the show me state. I want to see a metric actually improve, this 30,000 foot level metric improve through these projects. Now, to illustrate this different way of looking at metrics, I'm going to use a commute from home to work illustration. Now, this woman was commuting from home to work, and she took the data that she had in commute times for 30 days. Now, she noticed that 2 points were quite a bit higher than the other points in the time she took to commute. She started thinking about what happened then, and she remembered that one day she had a major traffic accident. The other day she had a major snowstorm. So those were atypical for her commute. So she said, well, there's not much I can do about that, but I want to look at my normal typical commute times. So she took those points out and tracked them. So this is what she's got in her time series chart. Now, the question is, why does she not have exactly the same time for her commute? This is the Y response. And the reason is because the X's, there was differences. For example, she might have more delays one day than the other because of traffic signal delays, and the other one could be the normal amount of traffic she experienced on any commute. So she went back to work and asked her technical person, how do you track metrics in our organization, and how do you decide how you should improve? She said, well, what we do is we establish a goal. And so she said, well, I'm going to look at establish a goal, and if we do not meet our goal, then we're trying to figure out why we didn't meet our goal. So that's exactly what she did. So she put the goal of 33 minutes. So they said that if you were beyond your goal, you should try to figure out what happened. Well, she started looking at the data and she couldn't figure out why these points were higher than the other points. Well, then she started thinking about, well, I've just got my goal set within the normal variation of my process, my commute time. So she said, I don't know if this is such a hot idea, but if you start looking at red, yellow, green scorecards, that's exactly what happens here. More often than not, we establish a goal within the normal variation of our process. And then we start triggering the red color or green color and so on. And that is not good. So I'm suggesting there's problems with this approach. So what I'm suggesting is using this 30,000 foot level approach. And that's what I'm going to look at here. I'm going to look at all her data that she had. And notice here now we do have those two atypical events included. Now, 30,000 foot level charting basically has three different components to it. First off, we have an individual's chart, and then we have the methodology to determine how the process is performing, if it's stable, and then we make a statement at the bottom of the chart. So again, there's three different things that happens with the chart that we have here. So before she threw out those 2 points that were atypical, well, we didn't have a real statistical reason for doing that, but it just seemed like the right thing to do since these times were so much larger than everything else. But now we have a reason, or a statistical reason, for throwing out these points. So that's exactly what I'm doing right now. So I'm throwing out those 2 points. So this represents our normal normal commute from home to work time. Now notice now we do not have any points beyond the upper and lower control limits. So we consider our process to be stable. So this is quite different than establishing that goal of 33 minutes and talk about points that are above that arbitrarily set goal. So now we can say our process is in control or stable. Now people say, well, Forrest, that's just a control chart, an individual's control chart. And I'll say, yes, that's mathematically an individual's control chart, but I don't use X bar and R chart, U charts, P charts, C charts, and so on. I use only an individual's chart. And secondly, I look at it from a high level perspective. So I'm looking at time series for days. So I'm not looking at something that I control from the process. I'm not focusing on identifying special causes and remove those. That's what control charts does. Now, this is an important point, and I hope you get it. If you don't, talk to me when we have questions and answers at the end of the session here. So you might text your questions that you might have if you haven't done so already. So then if I have I'm looking for stability. Now I have a stable process when I took out those 2 points. And so I don't want to talk about any of the individual's parts. That is the wrong thing to do. Now you could build a hypothesis test and look at this as Y and see if there's X driving it. Maybe in general, it could be you want to test out various theories. Is there a difference between my Y response? Might be by departments or products that I make and so on. All the type of stuff you use in Lean Six Sigma. So the 30,000, the metric that you would have when doing this analysis would be my 30,000 for the level that I'm looking at here for the project that you're actually working on. Now, the other thing, if you got a stable process, the neat thing about that, we could say our process is stable. Now, that's pretty exciting. Now, the next obvious question is, what do you predict? Well, you say, I'm going to consider the data from the recent region of stability to be a random sample of the future. So then what I do is I take that data for this continuous response and I put it on a probability plot. Now people might, oh my God, a probability plot, what the heck is that? Well, it's really quite easy once you get over the fear of looking at something a little differently. So you really have on the y-axis, you got percent less than. On the x-axis, you got the time. So we're taking all the data from the recent region of stability, plotting that out. That's a normal probability plot. The data follow a straight line. So we say, hey, we believe a normal distribution fits it quite well. So now we don't have a specification for this particular situation. Now, if we did, we could estimate the non-conformance rates. But in this case, we don't have a specification. So we're picking off the y-axis the 10 and 90% number. And you notice 90 minus 10 is 80. So 25 to 34, as you can see in the statement below, we got the estimate of mean value be 29 minutes, and 80% or 4 out of 5 commute times between 25 to 34. Now, I didn't say you're going to like that answer, but that's the way it is. And you can do this in general for basically 90% or even higher of all the output of processes. So far, so good? Hope so. So now this person said, hey, I believe there's another X. We talked about an X of delays from her traffic signals and also for the amount of traffic that she experienced on certain days. But she said, I think there's another X. And that X is the time I leave for work. What if I leave a half an hour earlier? My thinking is I would have less traffic and my time to commute would go down. So sure enough, she did that. And notice now our individuals chart transitioned to an enhanced level of performance. Now the probability plot now with that 30,000 foot level app, it only includes the data from the recent region of stability. So now we have an estimated mean of 20 minutes and 80% of the time are 4 to 5 between 18 to 22 minutes. So we've reduced not only the mean time, but also the variability in our commute time by leaving half an hour earlier. So anyway, so again, I believe there's an elephant in the room for our scorecards that we have using traditional approaches that we address with 30,000 foot level reporting. So IEEE 30,000 foot level reporting resolves organization of traditional metric reporting issues and also process improvement effectiveness. It gives you direction and also can quantify the amount of improvements you made through effective improvements. Someone was talking about lean. To me, before you do all lean events, for that matter, you should look at what metric you're trying to improve for these lean events. I was working in a company and touring their facility, and somebody said, we did a lean event here in this particular cell. I said, that's great. How did that impact your non-conformance rate or lead times overall of the process? Well, I don't think it did anything. Well, to me, that particular lean event, I didn't say it was bad, but it took resources. That may not have been where you should focus your effort. So what I'm suggesting for lean and Lean Six Sigma project, anything you're trying to do, you want to focus on what particular metric you want to improve. Because more often than not, I've seen anecdotal statements. And again, I'm from Missouri. I want to see the difference. Show me. So another way of looking at this is I talked about a 30,000 foot level view, a high level view of looking at the output of the process. And then we want to establish where we're at, put our customer needs here, and then we notice the frequency of non-conformance is larger than we want. And so then that pulls for projects. Now, this has a Lean Six Sigma roadmap to it. Now, in IEEE, we have some additional drill downs in the measure phase that are shown here, and my books get into all the details on that. But if you did a good job on your roadmap, and again, I want to see the difference, this should transition to a better level of performance, and then we got less non-conformance rate. So that's a good thing, and we can assign financial benefits to that. Now, in the roadmap that we have here, instead of a probability density function, we're going to do a 30,000 foot level chart of a probability plot that's going to be much easier to read. So 30,000 foot level and satellite level metric reporting, again, satellite or financial metric reporting provides A one-chart process stability and capability reporting, easy to understand wording at the bottom, much easier bar charts, CP and CPK and so on, much easier to understand. It's written in English. No specification is needed. Prediction statement, process improvement opportunities, insight. And I venture to say, if you look at your metrics this way, you gain much more insight than you've ever seen before. I've never seen it not provide more insight than you've had before. And also it gives good job of process change reporting, so you can see the benefits of from an improvement project. And also you can have consistent reporting throughout the organization. So in Management 2.0 and Leadership System 2.0, I provide 20, 30,000 foot level reporting examples. You can have access to this free 30,000 foot level app using this link that's shown below. Now, if you click on that link, it's going to lead you to the web page that's shown here. Now, this web page provides access to the 30,000 foot level app and instructional videos. But if you click on this particular link right here, it's going to lead you to a sign-up page where you can register and you log in. Again, the price is free. You cannot beat that price. If you click on log in, what that will lead to is what I call an Enterprise Performance Reporting System, or EPRS tool app, where you can freely provide the vehicle for creating 30,000 foot level reports for your organization's data sets. Now, I can involve, this is where you click if you go, the file input can be from an Excel spreadsheet of an attribute failure rate or continuous. That's no subgroup or subgroup response data. If you can see that if you click on the arrow that's shown there, you can analyze all sorts of data, virtually any type of process output data. If you were to select a particular data set, what you would see is a snippet of the upper left-hand corner of the spreadsheet. In this case, I'm looking at monthly expense. So I got month is the time series I'm looking at, expense is my Y output that I'm looking at. And I can look at with and without specification, as you can see on the left-hand side there in the menu. So it's your choice. You can go with traditional scorecards, and I'm suggesting it'll lead to very bad behaviors. Wells Fargo is just one example of that. Dell had problems that were reported in the media in a few years back, and so on. There's lots of stories about that. Or you can lead to 30,000 foot level reporting, where you've got statements that are a lot easier to understand, and you're not just talking about all the ups and down variation, but it leads to process thinking. Just red, yellow, green scorecard and all these other table of numbers and so on is not process thinking. So software is also available that can provide automatically updated 30,000 foot level metrics behind an organization's firewall. So I have a passion for showing people how to apply and benefit from a free 30,000 foot app for their data sets. Let me know some good times for you to have a half an hour Zoom session to demonstrate the application to your situation. So for this session, I'll just need your process output data in a format that's consistent with what I'm showing in that link that's shown here. Also, if you send me an email, I can send you a copy of this PowerPoint presentation. So I'm open for questions now. Any questions?
Well, thank you, Forrest. Thank you, Forrest, for your presentation. Does anyone have any questions for Forrest this evening?
I have one question. If you
Okay,
can
go
hear me,
ahead.
okay?
Yep. loud and clear.
I have a question about the eye chart.
Yes.
It has an upper and a lower control limit, and that's fine. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's the specifications.
Exactly. It's not the specifications. Right.
So we don't need to try to establish essentially the customer specifications, we allow the eye chart to kind of create the upper and lower. And if it's within that, we can consider the process stable.
Yes, that's a very important point. I'm glad you brought that up. So I want to go in and point this out here. I guess maybe I could have done another one earlier, but I didn't. So I'm going to go back to this other chart here because what you're bringing here is a very important point. Okay, so as you can see on the chart here that I've got, I don't have a specification. But let's say, for example, I do have a specification. So instead of bringing the 90 and 10% value from the y-axis, what I'd do is I'd be bringing up the specification from the x-axis. So let's say, for example, that we wanted to go in and we had an upper specification of 35. Okay, so if we had an upper specification of 35, then what our chart would do is go vertically to 35, and then you would see that if I were going up like this, 35 up here, yes.
Forrest, will you try sharing your screen again? I think I don't think it went through.
What happened?
I see what you're looking at, Forrest.
Yeah, I
Oh,
see
do
the
you?
chart.
Yeah.
Okay, it must be mine. Okay, my apologies. Continue.
No problem. So if you go up 35 here, then you look at over here, and then you come across, it looks like that's a value of 93 maybe. So then we'd say that 100 minus 93, about 7% would be beyond the spec. So instead of the mean and 80% frequency current, we say we estimate 7% nonconformance.
Yeah.
That was a great question. But the individual's chart does not do that. Now, I've had conversation with people and they say, well, it's the same thing. And now we're looking at this upper and lower control limit. No, that's not the same thing. They're two separate things. The control chart, the way we're looking at it, only looks at stability. And then you go in and look at capability, going in and looking at the probability plot. Okay, makes sense?
Hey, Forrest,
Uh-huh.
when you brought this up originally, I was thinking the same thing, so I'm glad you came back to this chart. Is the eye chart separated by 3 standard deviations above and 3 standard deviations below the center line?
Yeah, it's a normal control chart.
I just want to make sure that's what that is.
That's what it is. Yeah.
So yeah,
I don't try to change it
mathematically,
to,
mathematically, you're finding those upper and lower control limits.
because of the variability of the process.
That's
So
right.
if you have more variability, you're going to have upper and lower control limits are going to be spread out farther. But we're just trying to see if the process is stable. That's it. So we're not focusing on trying to see if we got an unusual event that's beyond the limit. Now, if we've got data and we have an event that's, let's say, it's just a little bit beyond it, well, that can occur because of just, if we got enough data points, we will have points out there. So we can override that with our software and say, we believe that's a common cause issue. And then it will give a statement at the bottom. But if you got any points beyond the limits, it's going to say it's not predictable, like this.
Right.
Okay, it's going to say it's non-predictable. But if you had a point that was just right over here, our software can be overwritten so that now it can say, oh, it's a predictable process, and it will give you a prediction statement at the bottom. Now, if you don't like that statement, again, you have to, and I'm underlining the word have to, make a process improvement. Don't talk about all the ups and downs. Make sense?
Right. Fix the X's, don't worry about the Y's.
That's right. Work on the X's. And the X's, you might want to, and that's where Lean Six Sigma can come in there. And the X's, when you start doing that, you say, hey, I see that there's more differences between divisions or different product lines or whatever. And you could test out those theories as hypotheses, where my 30,000 foot level metric would be these points here. So you'd have a spreadsheet maybe for going into Lean Six Sigma for each one of these points that you might have, or you could have other points for that matter too. You got to hey, I got a different person did it, or I got a different product line or something like that. And then you can build these hypotheses. So it's kind of like a murder mystery, who done it? And that's what Lean Six Sigma is about in the analyze phase. And you can use a 30,000 foot level metric that you're looking at improving, and that's what you would use. And I don't see that happen in traditional Lean Six Sigma, and it's sad. So I'm suggesting you need to have a 30,000, or you should have a 30,000 foot level chart report out for every Lean Six Sigma project you're doing, every one, or even if you're doing a Kaizen event, okay? Then the thing is, the Kaizen event, I want to see how you're improving. I went in and did this work in a company that they were bragging about how many Kaizen events they were doing every month. And I looked at it as an extrusion process. And I went and looked at it, and they were, for this one product they were making, I calculated the die breakage was equal for this one product to the total revenue they were making for this product. I said, oh my God, don't make more products, you're gonna lose more money. You know, and then we started analyzing it, and I did a DOE, it was very simple DOE, and I found out the way that they were doing the extrusion process was completely wrong. And they had been doing lean for 7 years.
Oh boy.
And I went in and changed the process, how they were doing it, and we eliminated die breakage for not only that part, but for all parts they were doing. So it's important to go in and have this form of metric reporting, and even for lean or whatever you're doing, and we need to look at metrics this way.
Can you kind of explain then on the website links? I saw what you were mentioning. I looked at it before the meeting, and it does, you give us a link to the software.
Right.
Then you follow that link and you can register, and it mentions the 2 books, the 2.0 books.
Right.
So I didn't go any further. So just explain to us, how are the books related to using the software, which is a link that you click on to gain access, I guess through a download?
Yeah, well, okay, so let's see, I'm trying to figure where I put it here. There it goes. Okay, so what I'm showing in here in these 20 illustrations, and I could have illustrated the software, but I chose not to do it because sometimes I'm guilty of presenting too much stuff. But you've got, like, I just went through one example here, and where I'm looking at one data point that's continuous, a continuous response where there's one data point for each time series. But what if you have multiple ones? Well, I don't use X bar and R charts, okay? And I use still an individuals chart, and I use an individuals chart, that's not me, is it?
No, it's me.
So I'm looking at an individual's chart of the mean value and standard deviation. And I show you how to do that in these books on how you can look at various situations. Our attribute data would be another situation that I talk about in these books, where I'm showing you how to do that where you don't have a probability plot. So I'm going through and showing you like 20 examples of using it in a hospital. So I'm showing you a real situation in a hospital. Well, it's fabricated, but what could occur in the hospital. And that's what I'm doing in Management 2.0 and Leadership System 2.0. I even take it to the next level. I'm showing you how you can build a system that links the scorecards that I'm talking about, 30,000, with the processes that actually created them. Now that's really exciting. Now to do that, you need to have software behind the firewall. And we offer that too. It's tremendous. You would not believe it. And I can share that with you offline and showing you how to do that. And I'm more than happy to do that. But it's too much for this session here.
Thank you for that explanation, Forrest. Does anyone else have a question for Forrest?
So this is Bob Mitchell. I don't have a question. I agree with 100% of what Forrest is saying. When the Phoenix section created its own set of KPIs. We went through the process of identifying our 4 key perspectives, taking into account our mission and vision, and identified our KPI, key process indices. And then from there, we developed our strategies. We didn't base our KPIs or balanced scorecard on strategies. The strategies came out of the KPIs and what we needed to improve. But what I want to remind or reaffirm what Forrest had said is if you are interested in receiving a copy of his presentation, please send Forrest an email. Typically, we make a copy of the presentation available on our website, but Forrest has asked that we please have the attendees request a copy of tonight's presentation. And then, of course, we will make this recording available as well, but there's not a separate handout. I just wanted to remind everybody of that. So if you would like a copy of handout of the presentation, please send Forrest a note.
Yes,
And I would recommend downloading his free app as well.
yes, I highly recommend you do that. If you're, and also how to apply the app, because in this I have 10 instructional over 10 instructional videos on how to use that app too, and take advantage of that. But then also I encourage you to contact me, and I can show you how this app is applicable to virtually any metric that you have, and you'll just be surprised. Just put that together. So I encourage you to do that. I want to also highlight the point that Bob was saying, metrics in ASQ section. So when I was the chair, this was in the end of the 90s at the Austin ASQ, what I chose as a metric, I wanted to get more attendance, higher attendance. So that's what I was looking at as my KPI. So I did a 30,000 foot level reporting of my KPI for that. And that's in my book, that's in Implementing Six Sigma and also Integrated Enterprise Excellence Volume 3. So I actually show how after I became the chair, my attendance improved statistically. So the chart actually transitioned to, in this case, a higher level of performance because of what I did. And this was in the 90s. So a couple things I did was at that time, we started doing email notices and we did some other things, but we worked on the X's, and in fact, we improved the Y's. And so that I actually have that as an example. But that's the one why I wanted to focus on, was getting more people in attendance.